三界之道，作之成王道，成就大德，但名教所起，但以情所依为错难敌。多拉并且三界各化之后，三界之道，作之成王道，成就大德，但名教所起，但以情所依为错难敌。多拉并且三界各化之后，三界之道，作之成王道，成就大德，但名教所起，但以情所依为错难敌。多拉并且三界各化之后。在讲这个每天说写到写的点这个什么道理，他反正写都不了，也过了的这些。
With regard to the topic for today, Geshe-la will discuss the opposing force to love, that which opposes love, meaning aversion or anger. So Geshe-la will talk about how to overcome, how to deal with aversion.
但做这个里面写这我做哈鲁伯的钱呢，是吧？看这地方什么考虑起来，看这年嘛地方在点这一团的，这个适当的什么当当，点这什么当当一团的适当的，看这是那个的，我什么哈鲁伯的钱写的钱呢？
So here mainly you should make an effort, you should give it some intensive thought with regard to how the understanding of interdependence gives rise to aversion. How it is, how it gives rise means how the understanding of dependent arising harms or opposes aversion. So how this understanding of interdependence or dependent arising serves as an antidote to anger and aversion.
你天不起来，今晚我们去采集跟松松特殊，但女的，但完了就女松人，他工作是个原因的，人的女的觉得见的，蒙古就有点吧，这个的车上把什么当不赢了，这个女松是这个做的，你确实做不了是，人家松真的。
So something that Geshe-la remembered with regard to what his Holiness once said was, usually when we get angry, when we get upset with someone, or there's aversion in our continuum with regard to another person, when they harm us, it's because someone harmed me. So as a reaction to that, then there's aversion. But then when we talk about the person who's harmed us, or that which harmed us, thinking of all the different causes and conditions that give rise to that harm, then there's not one specific phenomenon, not one specific thing to get angry with. It kind of dissipates.
但这个空中实验去，那空中把是那边经验去，那边建设去，那边讲话去，但这个的你看了对个的，他都什么当不了。
So now with regard to the person who gets angry, the person who inflicts harm, that which is being harmed, the action of harm. So what do they all depend upon? What do they rely on? What do they depend upon? So this is what we should consider here.
但那边讲话去，说那边他那边学过一呢，看你读者那边一呢，但这个那边讲话去的，他可以具有空中的，但那就差点过来。 空中的对过来，他等这去写呢。你空中的，但哪在因为他文字的也不是突围呢？你平时他要的了，怕空中马赛的，但是很多用过来听的，可以就空中的哪在因为文字结尾呢？平时能多的所有了，用蒙的哪在去？你缺的面积，你缺对应的面包去都是所有了。其实他用蒙的的对象是他题目差多，我在空中。 这个的那在因为目前的也不接对为呢，但可能在的朗诵生成的话，可以没做弄点我的，但的那在给他们有热的，可是那在那用的那边喇叭跟我用的用个多，可是德西这个多，可是东巴巴不差个多，可是草巴个多，那在 어디나 신다 하기는 남중년 받된 책두자 라우치온다 콘로나 사람이 당세되다 콘로나 세대기 남주 차로로 세디 다 아코나 사람소 선제바이나 아니야고 수수 길이야 시다마지에다 별로 연구했습니다.
So now with respect to the activity of inflicting harm, so there are different ways in which one can inflict harm on another person. So maybe through verbal abuse, verbally harming someone or hurting someone. So then what is it that gave rise to this that action, that activity of harming, of verbally inflicting harm on someone? Well, it is anger in the continuum of the person who harms. And so this anger in that person's continuum is like a disease. So we need to identify it as a type of disease, that this is like an illness. And in that way we do not get angry if we're able to identify that as some kind of illness. So this is also what it says in the scriptures. You find this explanation of the afflictions being like a disease, the Dharma being like a medicine, or like the medicine. And then the person who sets forth the Dharma, the person who shows or who teaches the Dharma is like a doctor. So then with regard to the different types of afflictions, attachment, anger, arrogance, jealousy, and so forth, all these different types of afflictions, they're like a disease. And the person harming one out of anger, that is like a symptom of the disease. It's an expression or a symptom of that disease. It's similar to when someone is sick, they're quivering, they're shaking, or their arms and legs are kind of wildly moving around. Their face turns red, etc. So these are all different kinds of expressions or symptoms of a disease. So then upon someone harming us, then we should remember it's very beneficial to overcome a negative reaction with regard to that. To then think, oh, this is a sick person. This person suffers from anger. So this is an expression of their sickness. This person is sick. So Geshe-la recommends to think that way, because that would be beneficial to overcome one's own negative reaction to that harm.
이거 뭐지? 그 친구샤주체 친구까지 제벌로 제벌로네 니만 이거 수바티마 맨 숙청 시부단 유서라 맨디 숙청부터 땅 전에 어디 차고 있어르디 코도사에다 디레기 유서를 맨기 긴기 제산다디 고랑기 다 기로 인서르다 그게 아자 숨시 제 맨가나데 이만 이거 수바다 다 먼저 하고 왔다디 기도 삼아 하고 와 암식 나사라 디맨 땅에 가도들 룩 디지그레스 아니 이 가스 제 찍기 뒤나 아니 가리 내가 제가 되면은 그 음식을 때에서라 저러러 건지니 오셔도 있어 나하고 pend다서도 나서 된거라다 애들 내가 지금도 된거라다 어디서 저러지 되샤 뒤에 코도 뒤에 뭐시들 루리 요한테서 대신 거서라 루리 지미다미다 요거도 신 제가 따디 하고는 야다 그 개무셔를 되게 무셔는 루리 그러 봐 제일 큰 나서 나서
So Geshe-la has a friend who once needed a new liver. So he received a new liver, or liver transplant. And on the second day after the surgery, he was given very strong medicine. And as one of the side effects of the medicine, the person gets very angry. So this is one of the side effects, it's one of the conditions or one of the effects of the medication is to grow very angry. So this was obvious to the people who were looking after him. So some of his disciples, there were 2 or 3 women, 3 or 4 women who were looking after this particular person. So they knew, because the doctor had warned them, the doctor had told them that one of the side effects is that he gets very angry. And so being aware of it, one of the ladies, she was close to the patient just doing her thing, and the other ones were more towards the back, were kind of standing near the patient but more in the back. And so this patient, this man, was so angry, there was so much anger. So, and the lady in front just did her thing, and the ones in the back were just giggling, were laughing, because just this kind of side effect of the disease, him being so angry. So therefore here, when we talk about attachment, that is attached desire or desirous attachment, when we talk about anger and so forth, here it's probably necessary to distinguish between those different types of minds by way of explaining it from the point of view of the different types of awarenesses. So when we talk about the topic of awareness and knowledge, so to distinguish between the different types of minds, the different types of awarenesses here. So anyhow, here it was actually laughable, the fact that this was one of the conditions of this medication, that the person grew very angry. One of the side effects of that particular medicine.
The Junju Nang the Chik Di Soga Quiki Tuja Jay the Kola Ramameba, Numonga Wangi Chigores, then Numonga Naza Lambi Wangi Lamentic Dota. Naza de Landu, Mishanada Pasha, Susu Susu Never Jay, Susu Susu Be So Jay, Any Kazara, Kimuchi Sosa, Kondo Saji, Susu Gomotolia, Tapidos. That's Kondo Naza de Landu, Susu Susu Negore. 다 미신다를 내게 다 고다 아장장으로 왔어. 디지도 전에 아니 되게 디 가서 그래. 다다만 저다 kelli nabama chena yon de gido da tongde sin yoneme na tongde jiris la jamu de chen nasar lang kan jumu che de de ni ju tong de zane ning che da ko tong ji ju ni sin ka sa de ning che gre ma do ka sa de ko ro sa ma ro o di so ru ji da ko ro gi tong de ju ni jamu de chen de zane mo ne chen ning che ko cha ro da ko na za la ne ji ko ba dengi sim ba de cha ba yin ko ro gi dengi sin ni da ko truly so le ne ji mi le ne ji che on de 가사들 때 인지고에 지레마도 ane 컨트롤사를 하지 말이스.
So as it says, for instance, in the Bodhisattva Way of Life by Shantideva, when he talks about anger, he talks about the fact that getting angry, the person who gets angry has no control, has no freedom in that moment, since they're under the control of that anger. And so therefore it's this disease of the afflictions under the control of which one may exist at times. One may experience these afflictions without any freedom. So forgetting about others, this kind of anger harms oneself very strongly, in the sense that the anger may drive one to commit suicide. Or, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama explained, the person who was repairing the car, and because they bumped their head, then they after they bumped their head out of anger, this person bumped his head again and again out of anger. So he obviously harmed himself. He harmed himself because of his anger. So we don't even need to mention the harm that is inflicted on others as a result of anger, but one oneself experiences great harm. So taking the example of a person who is entered by a spirit. So there's this way of explaining disease in the Tibetan tradition, for instance, where there's like a spirit enters them, and then they become very sick. They become very sick, and there's no real control. This person has no control over the disease, etc. So in that case, we have compassion for that person, because it is that spirit being that controls their actions, and there's nothing that they can do. So we don't get angry with the person who is inflicted by a spirit, but rather we have compassion. We have compassion with them. So similarly here, anger, if a person is under the control of anger, so it's like a sickness. This is like a disease. And so instead of getting angry with this person who is harming him or herself and harming others, so instead of getting angry with this person, we should have compassion. We should cultivate compassion for that person who is under the control of the anger.
This is true. But Junju with the Yomonki, the Susu never go. Tindigi Chitang the Che Udus and Ninji Makene, Kondo the Sajuka, said the Che. And it Kasa, doing his symbol said the Shipjabi division. Hasn't Toso, Shipjabala. Don't take his symbol, then you monk, don't take his symbol, and remember guitar called Kondo Sagmar was what the dinner she picture the Shipjabi division.
So his Geshe-la says he mixed up the explanation slightly that he gave early on. So in the Bodhisattva's way of life, Vashantideva, it says that when a person gets angry, they're under the control of the affliction of anger in that moment. So at least if we can't have compassion for that person, then at least we should not get angry. And then it's according to Ayadeva's 400 verses or 400 stanzas that it says like a person who's possessed by a spirit, who's possessed by a demon, in the same way as we should not be angry with that person who's possessed in such a way, we should not get angry with someone when they experience anger, understanding that they're under the control of that affliction.
Kondo Shuchimbo Sanga, Shuchimbo Jeum, the Tuzi Tangen di Yumodere, Dansa di Kansadere. Tanganzu Tuzi Dansadere, and Joe, Colonel Yumongi Neki Vigala, Yanjo, Zugi, Patigan, and Yumona Capurci, and Colonel Neki out of Kondo Sachi, that is Kins of Shagdo.
So, for instance, if we witness that a person beats up someone else, usually we get angry with the person who beats up the victim. So we get angry with the perpetrator, the person beating. We do not get angry with the victim. So likewise here, the person who is angry is the victim of the perpetrator of the affliction. So therefore, if we get angry with the victim, it's like giving harm. We are supporting the perpetrator. We are supporting the harm in fact, which is the affliction, by getting angry with the victim. We're getting angry with the person who's the victim of those afflictions. So that's actually quite weird to react in such a way.
Dinashin, Mazu, Kondoki, you never think of Yonga Hagu. Digi, Kondoki was some Yomardi in a kitchen and home of a Jido. This was a Ginimo Johnny, Rabardu, Janijin, and Nijin, Taponamaki or Shosmona de War, the Zinchigori, Inekido, Tadikare, mutation the Jidita, Ramame the Taro. Manzura Wame of a chain. So leading it around what you mean. Takora, you will look to study, Malaneki to Lanita, Kotosacha, quite a while, such which Yama. This I'm calling a finger.
So likewise with regard to anger, we know from our own experience that we do not want to have anger. We don't want anger to arise in our continuum. So there's no wish for the anger to arise, which means therefore that we have no freedom with regard to anger manifesting or arising in our mental continuum. In particular, a person who's practicing love and compassion, so this person would make prayers not to have anger arise in his or her continuum. They would make an effort, they would try not to have anger arise. So since there's no wish, there's no desire for anger to arise, that shows that there's no freedom, that this is something we do not desire. So if there is someone who does something purposely, intentionally, wants to harm or has the intention to do something, then that's different. But if there is no intention, if there's no freedom with regard to those afflictions, it does not make sense to get angry with that person, to have resentment with regard to that person.
Tizata, Dinashin Susu Quick Susu New Jedi, and Susu Lung Lange Magali Kondosani, Digi New Jebare, 야 디제디에 결로라 단니지 뭐 부시부시요래 계시 애니 코 가스고래 크리큘라 다 계산보드 테 로바야 보테 엔티데기 김에 점인지 하고 있게 되요나 다른이 줄이 요구 말해 다 디메네야 먼저기 직 자마디치도 디카도들 코세마 끼고 싶고 예배까지나 야 줄lum기 땡이 말해 진짜 결로기 다 콜레 콘도들나 해 유모 부시고지 쳐대요第几门几星的三波前的三当些先文呢，阳光路马赛那边都有过的，是说。
So therefore, with regard to a person who harms oneself, so this person harming us, they harm us because they get angry. So what is behind the whole situation for why they get angry, that's a whole different situation, that's a whole different story altogether. So here there were certain causes and conditions that gave rise to the situation that caused this person to get angry and therefore to harm us. If, on the other hand, they were in a very good mental state, so positive conditions came together, and they were to experience, this person were to experience love and compassion, well, they would not harm us. If at that time, hypothetically, if they had not experienced anger, but instead love and compassion, there's no way they would have become angry and harmed us. Or likewise, if we've helped them, if we've done something, and so they would be very happy. If something had happened so that they would be very happy, again, they wouldn't have gotten angry and they wouldn't have harmed us. So in this way, we should consider the different types of causes and conditions that may have been responsible for this person to become angry, for this person to have aversion. So it's very helpful in order for us not to get angry, not to react with anger upon the other person harming us out of anger. It's helpful to think of all the different causes and conditions that may have given rise to the anger of the other person.
지단에 먼저 수수인 연령기에 하고 문제도 세번 싶고 얘나 아니 콘도사에 갈래가 세부수도 대유나 아니 톡 전에요 콘도 남살래부터 디지도 전에 다 미디기 롱대용도 전에 다 디기 거리싱그리스는 다 코스튬 기부요 말 구부수도 대였다 디싱그 디 삼로디 코버 다 디규진디 신바이나 디 삼로디 코와이나 아니 다벌도 역할을 인지고요 작업을 아마 같이 된데 지금도 돼서 부부도 제와 여인자 부부 출동때 시부체용도 아니 닝제다 코스 기부여서 말이라 남사 파콘도 사이에 참았다 코 가리 콜라 강에 가리 요나스 도나테 제가 딱 어제 닝지 당기 매인자 남사 파동 나샤라 오늘 지금 출동때용도 다 콜라 강에 시부여서 다 콜라 강에 가리 요나스 용고거라 다 오늘 지금
So with regard to one's own experience, so this is something we know from our own experience, that when we're very happy, when we're really relaxed and happy, at those times it's difficult to get angry. However, at times when we feel mentally claustrophobic, when we're kind of upset, we're not happy, then even little factors can make us unhappy. There may be little conditions that cause us to become upset or angry. So therefore, someone who gets angry, someone who expresses their anger with regard to us, we can know from our own experience that that person is not happy. So we should think in that moment, what could it be that makes this person unhappy? Because there's no way they would react in such a way if they were happy. So it's probably that they feel claustrophobic, mentally claustrophobic and unhappy, so therefore they react in that way. So it's even more of a reason for us to be compassionate towards that person. For instance, taking a mother with her child, a mother with her child, if the child reacts very angrily towards the mother generates compassion, feeling, oh, what's wrong with my child? The child is probably unhappy, which is why it reacts in such a way. So instead of the mother getting angry with the child, she reacts with compassion. There's a compassionate mind concerned with the unhappy state of the child. So likewise, in the same way, when someone expresses anger towards us, we should think, what is this problem? What does this person experience? What is his or her problem which makes them become so angry? So this is really the way this is actually really, this is in actuality the way we should react. That really makes sense, to be concerned with regard to their well-being.
자갈 범배 나올라 아니 되게 미사직라 부 준준이 미사직라 아니 요모지 고도스 나는 워싱버지게 아니 보고지 티데도 요모지 니마 카시에지라 아니 니마 카시에지다 요모주니 디체 요주 디체 비체다 사실 거유자이서 거유자데 나게 아마기 시시 먹고 땅도 아니 남이 참아치로 내가 조사리 전에 아니 요모디 가지에 너게 부 준준이라 더가 유혀 이 공조사 엔타비 안에 간드지 티나 부고디 괜찮이도 맹안지니 괜시래 재미다.
So once there was a family, an Indian family, who had a kind of a wealthy family who had a small child. There was a small family that had a child, and they needed a servant. So there was a lady, a woman. They asked, or they hired as a kind of servant for the family. And one day, this servant, she broke a cup. She broke one of the ceramic cups. It broke down. And as a result of her breaking the cup, the lady of the house, she scolded her. She scolded her for having broken the cup. And then when the family went out and the servant was looking after the child, when the servant was with the child, she threw the child out of the window as a result of being scolded. So the good thing was that nothing happened to the child. Somehow the child, it was taken to a hospital, but actually it didn't get injured despite being thrown out of the window.
아니 poliski 다제 지도자네 부르랑 신기 자르트르큐는 매 자리여라 자리가 자투에 매 부준주여라 다 용원 그 유범마도 조선민도 세네 즈니 아니 용원도 디체디자네 아니 케데 되게 뭐 시시다 디마 폰도세네 부고도 요이라버다.
So the police investigated this case. So initially investigating whether the child had fallen out of the window and the child was too small. There was no way the child could have accidentally fallen out of the window. So therefore they inferred that this woman, the servant, had thrown the child out of the window. And upon facing this woman with this suspicion, she confessed. She said that previously she had been scolded, and as a result of being scolded, she got angry and threw the child out of the window.
근데 쟤는 용모디 독자 쉬우러 왔다. 혼자 때서 사그리데 근데 쟤는 부거라 마유인데 빼미시 독자로 왔다. 맞제에 혼자 사야라고 그런 범어도스다 아죠.
So therefore, we should this person, this servant, is really bad. So actually, we should be thinking this is a very bad person that she threw this child out of the window. So not only the parents of this child, we ourselves should also react with getting angry. It's just natural that we would get angry with her because of that negative action.
아니 다 police teaching지 이 police 다 조더디 이 콘도사니 딘데 용거리데 이네 부 베트 거마 유 딘데지디 지단 콘도 지키는 말이데 디 잡로는 니 주신다 뭐 요레스 덴데 요레스 기지 딘이 쉐로 지고 말에 이 슈고 딘데 생감기 딘데 지기 딘데 미드 요르와 딘데 깨다 아자지 과라니 갑자 바다 콜기지 지주지디 다 고강에 쇼테딩이지 보유 정세진이 미 고르다 반배를 내 강에 칸 강에도 좀 직시어도 쉬우지 테딩이지래도 쇼 강에도 지 하고요인데 내가 아마추어로 콘도 사야 파셔 디디 하고요 내가 시시된 거 말했어 근데 다 권나라 저기 판나라 로에기 도선도 상하라 땅이 있어 그래서 뭐제 지부지겨래 두자 제딩이 디 잡로나 니치 뭐 보여라 어제 잡로기 니치디 마통 딩기 니치디 지부 통디 아니 나사 밑 두자 쉬어도스라네 눈나에 용되기도 디 잡로기 니치 디 차상 신바이나 에안 잉체지 라로게 딘디 용구이서라.
So then the police in charge at that time, so she was taken to the police, and the person in charge was now investigating, was now examining with regard to her motive for why she threw the child out of the window. And so this policeman came to the conclusion it couldn't have just been that incident of being scolded, because this was such strong anger, so the main reason must have been something else. So suspecting that, a psychologist, the lady was called to now interview, now to ask questions to the servant to find out what was behind this servant throwing the child out of the window. And after a lot of conversation with the psychologist, it turned out that this girl, the servant girl, had experienced unbelievable problems. So she had actually, she came from Nepal and then to Bombay, to this particular family, to work there as a servant, and she had experienced a lot of difficulties, a lot of problems. And so upon hearing all these difficulties, the lady of the house, instead of getting angry, she felt like if I had known that this girl had experienced so many problems, she would have never scolded her. Instead, she would have assisted her to be able to go back home. She would have helped her instead. So therefore, this being in this situation, it shows us that sometimes when something happens, someone expresses anger towards us, we don't really know the whole situation behind, what the person has gone through, the whole situation behind that is responsible for their actions. So once we understand that, then we will not react in such an extreme way, getting angry. But usually we just look at the superficial situation, that which is in front of us, the superficial situation. We only take that into consideration and then react with anger, ourselves getting angry with the other person.
아니 말로 춥뒤 시kal라 바위네 자할레 요레 바스나레 요 아니 산삼 게니 마슬레 차디잖아 신나이 지킬라 police들이 같이 되지 아니 마다로 보지 마테스 잘라다 미니가 마테 버스티 죽스 타샤 다 police 조티인데 요레 멘다 요레 아니 신나이 지르 미니 요마레 첼레 첼주 담보세 같이 제레 아니 비샤 쳐 잘라 쳐 어떤지 공도 쉬어지사서 증투 말하다 미망을 증투 말을 공도사는 계시 나오는 멘다지요도 디디 공도 두져사.
Once when at the age of 17, Geshe-la left his home country of Nepal and went to India, came to India. And he came to India by bus. And when they reached the border, just close to the border, after the border, there was a forest. And there were some policemen who stopped the bus he was in. So he and one of his friends, there was one companion he was traveling with. So both of them, Geshe-la and his companion, had to leave, had to come down from the bus, had to leave the bus, take out their things. And so the police ordered them to come down from the bus, and the bus continued on. And so this was in a forest. They were surrounded by 6 or 7 policemen carrying weapons, carrying guns. And it was in the middle of the night. It was at 1 a.m. in the morning. And so the policemen took all their money, they took their things. And at that time, Geshe-la got really angry. He was thinking, of course he couldn't fight in that moment. He couldn't fight because he would have been overpowered by these policemen. But he was thinking, if I had a gun, I would just shoot all of them. So he got quite angry.
다 슈레 삼단데 전에 아니 덴데기 토데 삼다가 아니 말다 무이 초소 다시나 워소 다 강에데 테레 이네 코에 챤의 주스 당보보도 신나기를 대대 내려오지 요마 코에 가리지견 되고 가신 되고 엔 자거기 tanda labor the police chua to so posh da yomar ene kole na mi yore bugu labra tangore chamaje nga ta wata jare ko su chingwa de something yomar kole na mi yore ta tindi kange che ki re samde des ping do para le kange do sam.
So then later on, when Geshe-la reflected on that situation, he was thinking about him being treated in such a way, so thinking of dependent arising. So dependent arising in this context here, when they took all the money from him. So what happened to him personally was they took away his money and they scared him. However, he then started thinking, well, those policemen, they were standing in the forest at 1 a.m. I mean, they worked quite hard. It's not easy to be waiting for people early in the middle of the night to then take their money. So they work quite hard. And why? Well, because in India, many of the policemen with small policemen, or those who are not important or like of low rank, so those policemen don't get much salary. And they have families, they have children, and they have to send those children to school. So they have great responsibility and they have to look after their family with a very small salary. Whereas Geshe-la said, on the other hand, he's just a monk. So he doesn't have to look after his family. He doesn't have those responsibilities as those policemen have. And so that helped him. That helped him to think along these lines, to consider all this. It helped him to overcome this aversion and anger.
제가 말을 되는 시에는 공간을 내기를 독자시위도 이내 코를 보고 딩면이 콜다위나 천천의 취재 준이 당고보다 된 깔레다 은비샤사제 디버제 두신사제 말라다다 말라사에 통해 제라디다 자친구 쉬우시 차로 야부 쉬우시로 하다 보고 딩면이 시어이나 기승가 거의 보고 되지나 매치다 깔레들 되로 하다 디설로리데 아니 코도데 되라 마가오데라. From the point of view of Geshe-la himself, so from his perspective, these policemen were very bad. But from the perspective of their children, so in dependence on their children or in relation to their children, well, actually their behavior is something very positive in the sense that these policemen were standing in the forest in the middle of the night between 12 and 1 a.m., working very hard to get money from other people, accumulate known virtue in order to be able to send their children to school, to be able to give them money. So from the perspective of the children, they engage in something very beneficial, they engage in something positive. So from their perspective, they didn't do something negative. And Geshe-la said if this would be his child, if these policemen, the children of those policemen were his own children, he would do the same. So considering this or contemplating in such a way, this dislike, he lost this dislike for these policemen. He was able to overcome or lose the dislike. 다 되네 신다 발도다 아니 크이네 계송스 라디자네다 코슨 주구지 주가지 왔다 다디 네 다음에 탐문다 따다라 다음에 가는 조고에 얘기 말이 되지 가지 다되게 되게 제대로 또 크이네 계송스 라디 다 미디 책도자지 나요나 크이네 계송 라디자네다 크이기 강박이 내게요 말에 라베 내게요 말에 너고 내게요 말에 암조고 내게요 말에 내쟁이다 주구주가도나 그기다 가래 로 센디기다 디두자라고 때 아니 로아티기 우디당 아니 디제다 아니 제레다 추도다 소두즈기 아니 구조자 아니 쟁이데 잠치레다 나두치도 디나로 디마도 현다 요마다 대기 제바의 때에 그 계송은 따바 다 자신의 때에 따바세요. 자신의 때에 된데세요. 자신 디기 저와 제바의 때에 그 계송은 바 따바마도 오늘 주구주가는 되게 되다. 되게 되면 됩니다.
So then, if we take the case of someone harming us, So another person harming us, and we point at the person harming us. So let's see whether this really goes into the direction of selflessness. So let's see whether we need to really go into selflessness to explain this. Anyhow, so when someone harms me, I'm being harmed. So I'm thinking this person harmed me when they do something negative, when they say something, when they verbally abuse me. So in the case of verbal abuse. But what is it really that harmed me? If I reflect upon that, so it is not the legs of the other person, it's not the arms of the other person, it's not his nose or his ears. So what is really responsible for the verbal abuse that was inflicted on me? So there was an awareness in the continuum of the other person who had the intention to say something. So this person thinking, I will now verbally abuse myself. And then there's, from the point of view of the physical body, then you have the lungs that filled with air in order to be able to speak. And then you have the parts of the mouth, the teeth, the tongue, and so forth. So their kind of cooperation were then responsible for the abusive words being expressed. So on the basis of all these different parts, on the basis of these different aspects that are all working together in order to inflict harm, we then designate this person harmed me. So it's really that there are different parts, there are different aspects on the basis of which we designate. So it's merely a designation. It's merely a designation on the basis of these different parts responsible for inflicting the harm. So when we think about this, when we ponder this, when we reflect upon this, this is the way it actually takes place. This is what actually happens when someone verbally abuses us or verbally harms us.
Tā tī chī tū chā nē nē kēngē tī tī kē tī yin tū tā kē chā tī jī tāng nam jū xē ngā tā kēn chā shīm shū tā ngō yin nī sū shīm jū chēngē chī kā xē nā kē chā tē chī rā tā tsū nē kē tū kē sī khōng chō sā nā tsū nē kēngē tā tā tē rā khōng chō sā wā rā tī rā tī tā khōng chō kē kū kī xē tāng chē sū sū rā mā gā wī sēn tī chē lō wā chē tā kā tā tī chī tū tī lē bō tī lē yā pā tūk chā rā nā lō wā lē kī nū mā rē 아니 그 컨트롤이 체르도를 된대 만에베 간 아니 그 제레다 소다 뜻을 내고 말해 다 거기 안전네 세부샤실런도 그 남자 천내 게임이야 되게 천내 게임 말아 게임은 그 남자요 말 그래서 파 남자 살을 수 있는 계산샤다 내 게임이 뭐마디 파지샤 아니 신다질이야 몇 개도 있어도 잘 오르다.
So then when we talk about the person who's harmed us, in general, this becomes really strange if we examine the situation thoroughly. So the person who's harmed us, or who's harmed me, if we think about this exactly, if we really think exactly, what was it that harmed me? I should actually be angry exactly with that which harmed me. So I should get angry with the other person's awareness. I should get angry with the other person's anger. I should get angry with the other person's lungs. I should be angry with the other person's mouth and everything that is part of expressing those negative words or those harmful words. But actually when we respond with anger, if I respond with anger, I'm not harming the lungs of that person. In fact, I'm not even harming his anger, because his anger gets greater. Upon me reacting with anger towards the other person, then this other person's anger gets stronger, and therefore I don't harm his anger. I also don't harm his tongue, or his teeth, or his mouth. What I harm is his ears. So that which didn't harm me, the thing that actually didn't inflict any harm on me, the ears, they receive the harm. So actually, that which harmed me was something else, but I inflict harm on the ears. So actually that doesn't make sense if you think about it. So actually, if someone
강박이 동자시나 강박 다가라는 파시가 저는 정보로 그 거르시는 정보를 해봐서 할래.
So if one, for instance, gets kicked by someone, so if the legs of another person kick oneself, if one retaliates, it's actually only fair to beat the legs of the other person and not the head. Because that which kicked one were the legs and not the head of the other person. So it would just make sense. So, likewise, as before, as Geshe-la explained before, with regard to getting angry, so the reason for the other person harming us out of anger, the reason for that is his anger. So we get angry with the other person because we feel intentionally this person has harmed me. So since they intentionally harmed me, they harmed me because of their anger. So the actual enemy is the other person's anger. So therefore, if the actual enemy is the other person's anger, well, this is what we need to remove. This is what we need to overcome, or this is what we should counteract. The anger, the actual enemy. So therefore, if the actual enemy is the anger, if you want to reduce this anger, if instead, so actually what we need to do is reduce the anger, but instead, if we react with anger, then this person's anger gets stronger. So it's like giving vitamins to the anger such that the anger grows stronger. So it's a bit like enhancing the anger, as if we were to give this anger like vitamins or some kind of medicine to enhance it. Likewise, if someone harms us and we retaliate with anger, then also this person's friends and relatives and so forth, they all will get angry and again retaliate with regard to us having harmed them. They will harm us. And then from there it gets greater and greater. So there's more and more enemies. One has more and more enemies because they start multiplying by retaliating. So everyone else getting angry in that way.
Di chesanta parivegi das kondo de meva sogona da di tabi da chiran chi yoba di ta chi du pa chamse chi derida di ma do shen di li keni tapshimida.
So therefore, with regard to this other person, if you want to reduce, if you want to eliminate the anger of the other person, the only method to do so is by generating love and compassion. That is the only method to overcome the other person's anger.
되게 세배고로 송유나 김문음치 직가로 가리나요나 하고 mas 미치기 되어졌다. 다 미치 동가용나 가르쳐 버렸어. 가르치시나. 일정으로 시고 시제.
So previously during His Holiness's teaching, so someone asked His Holiness a question with regards to patience. So Geshe-la says he's not really sure about the preceding question, the preceding explanation, but anyhow, someone asked His Holiness, if someone comes with a stick to beat me up, what should I do? And His Holiness said, just run away.
That dine, sheda kare te ya sujol jarbaina. 다 지부지야 자르 말은 내송스 말은 내송스 다 제도 자지 라네 에네 수세 마기바 차이나 다 말은 내송스 다 뒤다 수불 내요 말 수불 가와 내요 말다 셈을 내 셈데스 마기바 차 대점 담만 셈디에 셈 셰바 뭐고 유비 나로네 다 셰베지 뭐고 유비 나로네 다 초이데 이기 되어서 소화 찍으랬다 에 데딜을 됐네요 이기 되어서 초를 돌아 뭐도 시바 신다도 줄네요 마 신다도 줄네로 전화도 야보다 수지 공도들네 수지 뜻자들네 수지 기무도 줄네나다 되게도 충으로 좀 매와 찬도 빼야버려대 네요 맞다 진짜 차시 다 류기 차시 동라모 뭐 세배 차시 야타 뭐 예배 나로네 찍르네 때 점다 네서 원네 에는 말은 네 손선 또 비다 버렸어 때는 다 버렸어
So, likewise with regard to oneself, so upon receiving harm, if we now focus on ourselves with regard to the dependence or the interdependence of oneself, so when someone harms me, when someone inflicts harm on me, so those negative words, these words, these abusive words, they make me unhappy, they harm me, they cause me unhappiness. Now actually those words do not harm my body, they do not harm the physical body. They make the mind unhappy. But of the many different types of awareness, that which is really being harmed here, so the mind that is being harmed here, is the mental, the mental feeling, the feeling that is associated with the mental consciousness, the pleasant feeling. So the unpleasant feeling that is associated with the mental consciousness, that is being harmed because it gets less, it gets lessened. So by being dampened, by being lessened, we say actually only that mental feeling of pleasure or happiness that is being harmed. Nothing else, there's no other awareness that is being harmed. If in fact these abusive words were to harm our afflictions, that would be great. If it would harm our anger and weaken our anger, our attachment, our ignorance, if they would get less, well, that'd be a benefit. That would be great if the abusive words were to harm our afflictions. So therefore, of the many different physical parts, of the many different awarenesses, so hundreds of different parts of the body, hundreds of different types of awareness, it is only one type of awareness that receives harm in the sense that it gets dampened, that it gets lessened. And on the basis of that, we then impute, we then designate, I received harm.
다 디나 신양 초진에 다 차시직 기토라도 네버디 다 된거도 잡아봐. 심마지고 söre 야나베는 무지지 초 제바이나 무동다지 초나 동다지 초가 디차를 네버리 되버리. 야 디기 깬체니 차시 신다든데 신다든데 뭐불라 패버든데 다 패지 뭐 요시가 없다니. 먼저 심주거래 지가 말아. 하고가 말아. 디르마도 신다라야 패버 뭐 용거 그 내게 받딜라 된.
So likewise, from one perspective, yes, there's definitely some harm in the sense that that one part of us is being harmed. So this feeling is being harmed, the pleasant feeling is being harmed by transforming that into a feeling of unhappiness. And also if someone were to take our money, let's say they were to take 1,000 rupees, well, in that way the other person harms us. That is definitely the case. But here, if we think about the conditions, the parts that have really been harmed, so on one hand, then we can also think of the positive, of the benefits that a certain harm can bring. So usually we don't really consider that, we don't really think about it, but it's possible that any kind of harm that is inflicted on us also holds some benefit, that there's some benefits that we just don't consider. This is possible that as a result of that, we experience some benefit.
Benatagin malati neje di jari poliski neje di na. Ani that din hago chanta ko ne ta shivuchimu de keke amara. That semaji bate sere, bisha de chore, jana de chore. That digi genjine chemane ta chero chutu wala. Chero dikan chramul chuntu wala ta ni mu ma do. Ikisi didune kemena ngaya chero mutin churwa. 아니 콜레 두 가지 케제 예자 배샤서뭐 초 마세샤나 딘디 용해지 있나 뭐만 다그 마승겹제 다 된다라 다이 미시 레미도 다 뭐지 통과 버다 저로비 마음에 니시 마토로 디레마도 직전에 그 가서 승겹이 제대 So for instance, with regard to the situation Geshe-la earlier
of the policemen near the Indian border. So at that time, these Indian policemen, well, they harmed him. I mean, Geshe-la knows that there was some harm, but there wasn't really a great harm. He became mentally a little unhappy, so mentally he experienced some displeasure. He lost some money, some of his things were taken, but there was not much greater harm other than that. But due to that, then he was now apprehensive with regard to going to this forest. So maybe previous to the situation, he would have gone to the forest in the middle of the night. But since this happened to him, he avoided happened to him. This relatively small harm didn't occur, and he were to go to the same forest, and something even worse were to happen there. That some robbers, some thieves were to take all of his things and kill him. So actually, the fact that his money was taken away in the middle of the night, that actually protected him from greater harm. So we cannot say that this is impossible. We cannot say that this situation actually protected Geshe-la from even greater harm. It's just that we cannot see it. We cannot see it. We're not aware of this. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible that this actually averted something greater, something even worse. That this situation did not avert or prevent something even worse.
Mana pemba sibare ringe roba mongol pe sana guna toju minduda na da roba sago tire ba ngi roba changma la ta sana guna sanjam la tire toju minduda na shara ta konjo kang ye tema go cha do ra ta di jinjin.
So not just did it benefit Genla that in the future, upon coming across this forest, when crossing the border, he wouldn't go there, but he also told his friends, if you ever come to that forest, don't go there. So in that way he was able to warn his friends and possibly also protect his friends from potential danger.
아니 너무 뺑거나 어서 lumbachi 아니 디 첩에만 유니티 바치를 사자 된지 시기도 봤나 줘야지 다 모터 먹으면 해보지 아니 디 조디자네 밑덮친 진이지 내용지 장갑다니 코마 비도 다 컨트롤사이로 왔다 봤나 드마토로 왔다 아니 슈근니지 고디 디마 세친 바스디 자르셔야 한다 다 미디가 커서 자 다된다라 그래서 너진이지 뭐 어제 제지지게요 말에 같이 지지지네 하고 말아 거리에 인식을다 순대게 우리 대는 팽기에도 내게도 선다해다 드지체 내려라 그래서
So also at one time a friend of Geshe-la, many years ago, it happened that some friends of Geshe-la who came from the same area, from the same home country that Geshe-la comes from, they traveled to Tsopema, to the sacred lake of Tsopema, by bus. And at that time there were not many buses, not many cars were traveling, so it was slightly hard to get to Tsopema. And when he tried to get on the bus, when his friend tried to get on the bus, a strong person pulled him off so that this other person was able to go. And so the bus took off without him, and his friend got quite angry. But later on he heard that this bus had an accident. It fell down an abyss. So therefore, actually the act of pulling him off this bus, of taking him off this bus, was actually an act that protected him, protected his friend. It basically saved his life. So usually we don't think about this. We don't examine a certain situation, a situation of harm. We don't really check what is it that may be the result of that particular harm. Whether it can avert something, whether this harm may avert an even greater harm. And it's not impossible. In reality, it's not impossible that this takes place. So actually, one should thank this person. One should say thank you to the person who pulls you off the bus.
그래서 우리 춘주가를 루주가를 버리는 남들 때래 디디가를 가시직 때스마를 통중제 데스 직전에 말한 남도기 인기를 다가지 데스디 요래 디견지는 기부요 말 셈마 기부제 어딘지네 디카도들라 아니 해줘줘 드럼산는데 아니 딘 조진의 뉴스디 통 안티기는 드럼산을 잡아지가 책임이다 조진의 조인벨다도 당아 파기 기부 매인자 조인이 쓰랍살 납샤 다 치즈다 다디 치즈다 단다보다 지단내 버제 강에 머물 열때 이내 셈나다 야부 총소 선버도 숙심부터 최제 라송 지 잡아제 라송 다 칭버지도 다 디삼단도 디자와디 디르다 다 디디가를 타주제 현재디 어디니 콘서 가시지기다 가르스 그래 다 말디 데스 마카와체 통중체 다 딜람다 하남다 수질라버리 자체와 자르지거다 되게 이 뮤직도 숙청무 땅이 자체무 시우차디거다.
So likewise, at the age of 10, Gisela went to Nepal. He went to a school in Nepal. From the age of 10, he went to school there. So he was bullied at that time. So some of the other pupils kind of bullied him. Gisela says, well, he's not 100% sure. Maybe this was just he just imagined that there was mistreating him, but definitely he felt bullied, and so he was unhappy at the time. And so around that time, or when he was going to school at that time, his brother left Nepal to go to Dharamsala to become a monk. And so his brother at the time, he asked him, do you want to come to Dharamsala to be a monk? And so Gisela said yes, because he was unhappy in school because of the bullying. He was unhappy, and so decided to go with his brother to come to Dharamsala and to become a monk. And so therefore start become a monk and start his education in the Dharma. So therefore, when he thought about it later, all this was actually very positive. That he was introduced to the Dharma. He started studying. He started practicing, and so forth. And so actually now, being content with his life, the root of that is being bullied. So those bullies, those who humiliated him, so those who mistreated him, in the end, that became the cause for him to decide to come here, become a monk, and start studying and practicing the Dharma. So actually, those bullies, in a way, are more precious than one's lama, in the sense that they were responsible for him to come here and study and practice.
다 디나 신지기 말내기 송다 되잖아요. 다 내기 계좌를 내기 송 아니 내기 수부를 내기 송다 와이 번절 내기 송 되저러다. 디지디 디게디 차서 그래서 처바지 잡아이나 근데 차그래. 번절이 야보차 수부 대당차 미참매기 되라당 근데 차바이나 다 미청지 생각도 저 있는 내지 가르마다 맞아 어디 있나? 근데 맞지 쉬우지 그랬다. 맞지게는 같이 그래. 수술을 교도를 통중성을 내그래. 아니 수술을 냠버도를 전심내는 거래. 수술을 토도를 아니 차도내는 거래. 아니 다티 수하고도 맞지지래 차도지래 기우치입니다. 사고도 딜레 도를 줘는데서 하는 미참을 수술을 찍고 위해서로 그지. 천원든지 내는 거. 맞지 수치고 깨는 거. 아니 딜레비 다디 가서는 미치기 때스 지금 마가 가서 먹이버지는 좋아이네. 남상 마대와 깨우지. 콩마다지 동저지기다. 되다이 니수서 맞지. 이네 파통도 콩마지 지기도스. 그래서는 말 구셔 맞지는 저거도스. 인기수서 맞지다. 파마지 통도. 다 딘디지 레비 가도네 아니 차서 유연에 끼부치는다. 셈만도. 디지리자네 다 디인디 테스트스 네 깨딩이다. 아니 문제는 무슨 거다. 책도자랑이 유연아. 다 딥mon거다. 나쟁mon거래. 나쟁mon거 디기 되길래 강에 참먹는 거 제대로 한다자. 맞자디고. 딜레디 암지도 지거래. 오늘 제가 수술 테스트 내게 되는 수 암지도 지고 차대고 있다. 이 슈치고게나 가시 테스트 내게 되는 수 암지도 지고 그러시. 수술 뱅거 같다 된다.
Likewise, with regard to someone harming us. So the harm that is inflicted on us could be with regard to one's reputation or fame. It could be with regard to one's physical body or one's possession, one's wealth. However, if you think that if we didn't receive such harm, if instead we had a very healthy body, we had a lot of possessions, we're very wealthy, have a good reputation, are famous, etc. So if we are bodhisattvas, that's different. But as an ordinary person, we generate arrogance. We generate arrogance. Arrogance to such a degree that it makes us unhappy. So those that are lower than us, we humiliate them. When there are beings who, from the point of view of their status, etc., are lower than us, we humiliate them. With regard to those who are equal to us, we have a competitive attitude with regard to them. And those who are higher than us, who are more than us, we're jealous. We're jealous of them. We envy them. So therefore, possessing all these positive aspects, or all these things such as fame, a healthy body, etc., actually leads us to be arrogant and proud, and therefore leads to our own unhappiness. And so, therefore, it may even get worse. So on top of having all this and feeling proud of oneself and reacting with jealousy, etc., there's also a sense everyone has to esteem me very highly. So they have to regard me very highly. And out of this strong arrogance becomes so strong that there's a sense they have to respect me and esteem me, regard me as very like someone as very special. And if they don't do that, if they just show a little bit of disrespect and they don't regard us in the way that we expect them, we accuse them of being arrogant. It is actually our own arrogance that leads us to think everyone else needs to consider us to be special. But then we accuse the other person of being arrogant if they don't fulfill our wishes. So in that sense, having everything that these phenomena, wealth and so forth, having all these factors, actually we're not happy. On the other hand, the person who takes away our health or our wealth or our reputation and so forth, they help us in the sense that by way of taking that or harming those aspects, they benefit us. They benefit us in the sense that their harm serves as an antidote to our arrogance, to this potential arrogance that may arise and make us very unhappy. So in a way, the person who harms us is therefore like a doctor. However, Geshe-la says, I don't know if there's really strong harm. I'm not sure we can really think this person is like a doctor. But in reality, this person harms us. By harming our body, our wealth, our fame, etc., they benefit us. So in reality, they are beneficial.
That 대행에게 좋은 공로도 두자두자 나자레 나가나시 마제시에디 나자 두자지레스디 야고 하고 미지나 메라탄디카 저라탄디 콜라사이니 나자디 알로주고라 세두자라디 다 나자디 마차고라 가부체 소 야부도라디 아니 나자디 알랑고라 다동가이니가.
So if we really understand, as explained before, that anger and desire and so forth, that they're like a disease, then knowing this, if we really understand that, then if someone harms that, we understand that they're actually benefiting us. Whereas if they were then to praise us and tell us we're really good, we would get angry, because actually now they're harming us in the sense that they may increase our arrogance, our disease, our afflictive emotion.
다 딘지기 파기야 최 켈링인지기 디기 지시용데 디저드 레다 디기 팽기도 디 파기 팽기도 이네 최제를 내게 온다 다티 파고르서는 뭐듯이 켈민도스 서서 최제를 내게 오나 다 내가 파스 펜다민도스 다네 디 타지도 공도를 뭐듯이 디 lep시기로
So early on, that being the case with regard to the early explanation, but then with regard to those who want to practice the Dharma, who have a wish to practice the Dharma, if then someone harms us, in other words, prevent us from harming the Dharma, well then there is a sense one should get angry. That if another person hinders us from practicing, well, there's a good reason to be angry. There's no benefit from that. So that's what we usually think.
디나는 거기 진주나는 뒤에서 근데 라와이나 아니 거기 최제를 딱 변수수 로정제라 딱 거리는 내게는 최제 넣어도 차로 초 디네 집에는 최제를 넣어야돼 초 신다진의 생각에는 최제를 해버렸어 그래서는 최나는 숙체셔디 쇠발에 숨어버렸어 그래서 쇠발 보면은 펜타고 봤어 그게 내 맞게는 쇠발 보면은 그래서 그 내게와 인사 쇠발 보면요래 진짜 최제비 깬제를 뭐또 최제발은 다 초진의 상담은 최제비 뇌를 초진의 상담은 최제발은 펜버렸어
So, for instance, it says in the Buddhist traditional Bodhisattva way of life, it says, well, when we want to practice the Dharma, so for example, if we want to study, when someone harms us with regard to our study, like the study of Dharma, there's a sense that they harm us with regard to the Dharma, that there's harm to the Dharma. But actually, when thinking of from a different perspective, we're taking it from a different perspective, the person who stops us, who prevents us from studying, they give us the opportunity to increase our patience. So from the point of view of Dharma practice, one of the greatest practices is the practice of patience. So then, if they harm us, if they try to prevent us from studying, it gives us the opportunity to practice or to familiarize ourselves with patience. So therefore, it's actually not the case that they harm the Dharma or harm our Dharma practice, but they become a condition, or they benefit us from the point of view of Dharma practice.
아니 거기 뒤집어 인상도 수고 고매다 다 최지를 팽겨를 소소를 팽겨를 이내 그 페로 제너스는 제 말을 왔으니 이게 딜라바이나 페로 제너스는 제는 뇌지가 말을 왔어 뇌 맞지는 수고 고매면도 왔어 딜라다 저거 공도 상은 저도 펜세 매버지 내심 여바 인상 뇌지와 인상은 수고 고 뒤차기도 왔어
So if we were in response to Geshe-la's argument, we were to say, okay, so it's true that because of this harm, we got the opportunity to practice patience. But nonetheless, it's still not okay that the other person harmed us, because even though they actually benefited us, they didn't have the wish to benefit us. They didn't have the intention to benefit us. And then Geshe-la says, well, if they had the wish to benefit us, they wouldn't harm us, and then they wouldn't have the opportunity to practice patience. So it's actually better that they didn't have the intention to benefit us, because if they had this intention to benefit us, they would have benefited us and would not have given us the opportunity to practice patience. They wouldn't have harmed us, and therefore would have not given us the opportunity to practice patience.
좀내디 도지나로라 딘디지도 아니 산제다 다체레 김dü이레 다소소라레 구르와탄다 아니 하장기 마가와 마치스 하장 마가와 제바이나 아니 크일라 저기 니치디 문에디 통토고 말했어 뭐 니치디 아니 셈디 파게 소소기 라와요 마치 하장 마가와 마제바이나 장보진 두스테바이나 크일라 저기 니치 다다 통토고 그랬어 통토네 아니 오늘 레드나 다가르제 단규르스 켈레스 산게르 큐르제 제바이네 디큐르레도나 산게 다가르 큐르도스 켈레스 인큐르레멘도나 에처로 투레 니스 모이니스 분데데스 세히체스 데섬레스 하장기 마카와 마체스 와틴디소나.
So in one of the sutras from the Buddha, it says when someone puts down the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, or oneself, if someone puts oneself or those Buddha, Dharma, Sangha puts them down, one should not really get unhappy, not really get feel that, not react by feeling this is something really negative. Because if one doesn't have that negative, that kind of extreme response, one is able to see the situation clearly for what it is. So if there is some kind of humiliation or criticism of the Buddha, etc., of someone, one keeps a clear mind, a balanced mind, being able to see, okay, if there's a fault, if I've done something wrong, okay, if someone criticizes me, okay, so there's a mistake and that can be adjusted. And if there's no mistake, if there's no fault that was actually that the other person wrongly perceived or fault, well then I can explain it. So therefore it's important not to react in a very negative way, but to be level-headed in the sense that one is able to see the situation clearly and give an appropriate response.
Ani di tongkirgi da zojiora zodigita dizete di beti khona mi lo shin le ga ma che ba che tus di chine be tu sha du swim te chou mes ka sha do mi su za zhe ne swim te go ma ra te pe go ma ra di ji de ne cho zo khara za la chin pe ma da lu be gi bo bo khara za chung ne de da ki no de gi fa ge le da kho pa ti she she ta da so be le ga ma che mid le ga mid lo shin she mo ho le ga me was se pe tu ja shi bo res na me she tu ri to se zum shi je sen ji shu je ane ga jin ta tang che lu ra da ko wa cha na ki ji ti cha ra ma da cha da ji te ki si ti nge ma le ba ina cha da di si sa tha ge res ti da nge sa tha ko jo ti le da da cha la sha jo ta ti sa ma ni chhu ni le mes so Koraya, Steve Sip Georgia, Koras Jopi.
So at some point Geshe-la says, I don't know, he says he doesn't know that this has actually, there's an actual relation to the concept of interdependence, but anyway, there's a story Geshe-la remembers from the Buddha, a story from the time of the Buddha, when the Buddha and his disciples, the bhikkhus, when they went around for alms rounds, so that they went for alms rounds. So at some point they went to a specific town. So this was in the area; it was kind of the main town, and they went there to go an alms round. And at that time, the local people criticized these monks, criticizing them, saying there are all these young people, these young monks, going around begging instead of working. So they were very critical of them. And then the main person of the town, the kind of mayor or the main person of the town, when the Buddha approached the mayor, he became very unhappy. He was very critical again of these monks, saying all these young people who were not working, who were just begging. And so, in response to this criticism, the Buddha just remained calm. He was just smiling very calmly. And then the Buddha says, well, if you were to give me something and I were not to accept that, who would end up still owning that object? And the person said, well, me, I mean the person who's giving it, if the gift is not accepted, I would still be owning it. And the Buddha said, well, likewise, I do not accept your speech, I do not accept what you're saying, so you still have to own it, you have to keep it. So in response to that, this particular mayor, this person changed his attitude, he changed his mind, and he made offerings to the monks.
Nani chigdi da kogi chigdu labar du chigdu jala na di semba jiba chaya di chigdi ge gen chigiri di zo su samu tangda ma shenbe di gen chigdo da kaza shibjaba na di sungari dosha da chane sungdo wobu chig dagarangi chigla dosha jibi gen chigo are chigla ale sheba lobi gen chigo are dila di wobu kurangi mwene dosha gi gen chigo du dosha gi di suzuki samu tangda ma chigni gen jo re shas di na shin ane kongzho de 뭐버디 다긴 제바 점달라고 지기로 하다 랑외네 다 파게지 크레기 콘도사 주고도 스틴데 계제디 코란 거네 계제디 매버지 조조의 수지 섬당나 마신 비긴기 내가 지금 직장인의 섬당나 신경 지가 되기 뒤지고 말 가서 내가 말 세마지고 쓰고 말
With respect to here getting angry, this is actually getting angry is when someone says something negative. So in response, if one then gets angry, these negative words, it seems the negative words, the abuse, they are something negative, and so therefore one gets angry. But in actuality, those words are not, they're merely a condition, they're kind of a secondary condition that causes the anger. The anger only arises mainly because one is not able to think properly, one is not able to reflect upon the situation properly. So these abusive words only play a minor part. And this is also expressed by Ayadeva's 400 verses. He explains this in the context of desire, explaining that the object of desire is really not the actual object, because an object that seems very attractive to one person and leads to desire in the continuum of that person may lead to revulsion in the continuum of another person, which shows that the object in and of itself is not a cause of desire, is not a cause of, well, here in this case, of anger. So that which we usually accuse of being the main cause of anger, the abuse, the harm by another person, it's in and of itself, it doesn't hold anything positive or negative. So in and of itself, in reality, in actuality, it is not a cause of anger. It is one's own attitude. It's one's own attitude, one's attitude, one's way of thinking in response to that abuse that causes the anger. And a person who knows that, who is aware of that, would not get angry.
미기 잡로를 두자 라요나 그래서 저번에 무슨 랭게제 그 저런 두자 라기도 신에서 맞지고 차리다 신 랭게면은 책거를 연구만 주주네 마태나 단 나자도 지나야 지금 라해줘라 디 주용지 주스 디게 용을 내게 떼지용을 다디 담이 랭징이 디 뭐번나야 내가 두자 디게 제시 띵제 디 랭게는 디다 고준전데 말아서 팽기로 뭔가 제도로 디마도 견제 진지 라기도 렌징이 오늘 저는 세마지로 쓰는 오늘 렌징이 차지한다 제자단다 가든데 남아 쳐바지 어딘지 지기든지 라이서라 거기 저런 데 라기도 다스나데 미기 밀어 접시 맞잖아 술이다 그랬어 아니 딜레이처럼 두시 맞아 소이서라 다 디게제도 것도 제만 수시 렌징이가 볼 걸로 그러는데
So sometimes when someone talks about us behind our backs, well, usually then there's another person who tells us about this criticism, about someone speaking behind our back. And only then, later, upon hearing the criticism of another person, only then do we become angry. So we cannot actually say that the words of the other person harm us, because unless we hear about them, unless we hear those words, unless we hear through another person, well, they don't actually harm us. These words are not like a disease that the moment it arises in our body, then right away it harms us. No, here, it's actually, before we hear it from the other person, we don't actually receive harm. So actually, it is not the words of the other person that make us angry, it's upon the messenger. So it's really the messenger who harms us, because if the messenger hadn't told us, the words themselves would never harm us. So therefore, the Kadampa, so one of the Kadampa practitioners, he was one of the practitioners. So once he heard the kind of negative words that another was, or some criticism that someone had or some criticism with regard to that practitioner, and someone else gave a message to this Kadamba practitioner telling him about it. And so the response of this practitioner was like, you shouldn't telling me, you're causing trouble here, you're stirring up trouble here, you're causing a division here. So therefore, from that time onwards, no one passed on a message to this Kadampa master with regard to criticism or what other people had said, and he was able very happily to continue his practice without having been stirred up by any kind of gossip or any kind of talk.
That's the casa for service that's all Pajo Neke Dilla any Machoba meeting, Misuba meeting that Subachi, that Shidang Yimo. That Habardo, that Suba maybe Tony, Shidangi to the Panduki, did that diligent that Misuba some diligent to a chatter.
So in the case of patience, so mainly when we're being harmed, what happens is that we cannot protect ourselves from this harm. In other words, we cannot bear it. It's impossible for us to bear this harm by the other person. And so therefore, if we then go out and harm the person by getting angry, if we're not able to bear it, we were not able to be patient, if then we dish out harm, we give out harm with regard to that person, so not only do we experience the disadvantage of not being able to be patient, there's more harm coming by retaliating with anger.
So in the
same way as previously, we reflect upon the different causes and conditions that give rise with regard to someone harming us. Likewise here, then when we retaliate, when we respond to the harm by harming someone else, we should now reflect upon all the resultant aspects of all the different results that arise independent on our harm. So in that way, dependence from the point of view of what are the results that arise or that manifest as we retaliate to a harm. 아니 제자자 춘내 계기도 쓰는 콜페 독자 소리하나 공부 전제로 세샤와 있나 그래서 제샤와 있나 코치불 내려 젠도 디거르디 내가 말아 그 방어도서 간대 차네 그 부고도서 간대 차네 그 인연생도서 간대 차네 이 상만을 내려 와라 디스 토다 요말 스스로 신다도 저 내게 토다도 요말 다 파란데 임바 차샤 그렇죠. So as before, as Geshe-la talked about this reflection with regard to if the hand of another person harms oneself, one shouldn't beat up the legs. So one shouldn't respond by harming the legs. So here, of course, we're talking about this. We should examine reality here. So how it is in reality. So likewise, just from the point of view of a person harming ourselves. So then it's actually, in one way, so without considering negative, so virtuous karma and non-virtuous karma, by leaving that aside, but actually in one way we can say, okay, it's appropriate to harm the person, to retaliate with regard to the harm that was given to us by a specific person. So we can harm the person who inflicted harm on us. Of course, it's not acceptable that we harm this person's friends, or parents, or other relatives, children, and so forth. So this is basically common sense that we can harm the person who harmed us, but no one else. However, if we really harm the other person, and let's say we harm their sense faculties, for instance, so in that way, actually, we don't just harm that person, we do harm the parents of that person, the children of that person, and the relatives of that person. And we actually don't have the right to do so. If we have any right, then only to harm the person who's harmed us. We do not have the right to actually harm other people who are connected with this person, but who have not harmed ourselves.
That dinner shinchi pedochele di somdan chozara. Kadudila kola pains, michirachirity. Kola pay on the Takoya Buchauna, and that never watching another town. That quick to the pedro, Queen and Mitsamo Court of what's on a cardboard. Mimbuji the pedro, that della.
So when we look at it from a positive kind of perspective, if we benefit one person, so actually we have the intention to benefit just one person. So although we only benefit one person, let's say someone who was sick previously, but we help them to get better. So actually not only do we benefit this person to get better, to recover from the disease, but in that way we also help this person's parents, this person, the children of this person, his or her relatives, and so forth. So the benefit is not merely directed at that person, but it's also directed at others.
Kondo da neje duzo naza na tagilava naza chadiare naza de tirido kwele naza kwele ngi da mengi ni do TV the positive da negative ni ti do ta kwele ngi de positive do da ha bu me da di positive do kwele ngi de.
So therefore anger or harm is like a disease that is passed on to others. It's like an infective kind of disease, or a contagious. Sorry, it's like a contagious disease. So, for example, when we talk about contagious disease, in the case of tuberculosis, for example, so there's positive and there's negative tuberculosis. So if it's positive, it's contagious. So here, likewise, anger, angry kind of states of mind or harm, they're like, not just are they like a disease, but they're like a contagious disease, because they harm not just one person, but the harm kind of spreads out.
Mala tujala de yang e tobo da ninze so kondo sa yang konzo ge pa tujala to chapter na se de.
So let's say, for example, someone says something negative out of anger. They say something negative towards, they abuse me, they say something negative to me. Then I respond by harming that person out of anger, and then this also harms this person's friends, relatives, and so forth. Then they respond, they get angry again, and then they harm me, which then also harms my friends and my relatives. And so in that way, the disease spreads out. It's contagious in the sense that it spreads to other people.
Menga dusunan jodi gwene yungi neba dusugi kalare karfenda susun nasa yu hagu warwa tadi kanan di shinda la di chenu kwe rugure te tadi na shinda lola kondo yu nasa di le yune di gwene di mili kwe ma shu wale karshan kyuru.
So therefore, when you go to a hospital, those people, those patients in a hospital to have a contagious disease, they wear like a mouth cover, or like a protector, like a mouth cover, in order not to infect others, in order for others not to be affected by the disease. So likewise here, when we get angry, when we suffer, when the disease of anger arises in our continuum, we should also wear some kind of mouth cover in order not to infect others with this disease of anger. one's continuum and one doesn't let it out, it may actually harm oneself. So maybe one should go to an isolated place and kind of like, jump up and down to let out the anger. Are there other kind of ways to reflect upon anger or how to deal with anger? Any other suggestions?
social movement, 어디가 간절로? 지속이 시도 지속가 시도 지속이나 사실 도착이 뭐고 지나지도 이 루치 친구지 뭐고 지나지도 아니 그런기 저거 뭐지 내가 근데 지금 뭐고 지금 아니 그래서 뭐 그래 지금 the 지속 like this 정보미 like this 그래서 아니 교보에 공소 교무라거라 아니 쇼히나 대면이나 이 컴퍼니신 뭐지 이 야곱하고 맞지요 이 공소 뭐고 지야 아니 아니 그런기 주고 이게라 공소 저디 상고 우리 공초라네 근데 집이 아니 공소 나 그래 공초매나 뭐고 집이 말해 먹고 지하기 공룡이야. 지금 콘초디 콘초디 먹고 지하기 공룡이야. 아니 배로 차차이가 단다 다와이키 컴퍼니 소적 친구직 해서 다와이키 사사카시 소적 주모. 아니 소적이 콘초 소적 제도랑 제 그래서 도자지 망보디 치료 통용도 코리라 시고 진내요. 아니 미 추가내라 아니 추동 나사용이라 아니 나한테 미 망보디 게메나 아니 공소 양 옛날나 소적 중에 아니 단다 추 저보디 파 치료도 아니 거기 미야 망보시치 아니 거기 냐발라 이초아 게야가 이강에 치서 가능하냐 소라 이 자부직 농구 내서 농구들이 정치 아니 니 다시 지금 생기부에 막 홍주사 재능 먹고 되지라 소자 너무 재밌지라 지금 단합 홍주들이 근데你如果我们欠了근데 홍주 랑치 먹고 겨나 아니 남취를 따나 이 홍주사 얼마 아니 그래서 얼마만 일이나 내가 공초 간질스 교화 친지 아니 공초 매같이 공동이 공초 많이 같이 이나 다들 단다 내가지 인신을 로가 지야 먹고 지야 이 단다 내가지 양 지통을 뜻없이
So now his question is, Gisela gave a lot of examples with regard to anger. So many, can you hear me? A lot of examples with regard to anger and what are the different antidotes that should be applied. Now here his question is, he says he has quite a few friends, he has a lot of friends who are engaged in social movements, who are engaged in protests, like protesting in protest against the government or against corporations, etc. So any kind of injustices that take place in Taiwanese society, for instance. So to protest against the situation of poor people, the conditions of poor people, of abuse, of like people living in very poor housings, having very poor housings, etc. So this social movement takes place motivated by anger against injustices. So a lot of the energy, or a lot of their activities is motivated by anger with regard to these negative, with regard to these injustices and so forth. So this is the case in Taiwan. So for example, in Taiwan there is a factory, or there are several factories, and these factories, there are substances, poisonous substances that are released from those factories, and they go out into the environment and harm the environment, harm other people. And the same factory has also been established in Vietnam. And there it's polluting the water, many fish die, the fishermen have no way of their livelihood is being destroyed. And so there's so many situations so many injustices that they fight against, but their motivation is anger. It's anger with these injustices, and that's what motivates their social activism. And so they're not happy, they're actually not happy due to the anger in their mind. And so now the question is therefore, in a way from a Buddhist point of view, getting angry is not something, well actually it seems that here, because it's something that people, these injustices, to get angry seems to be kind of appropriate, but if it's not appropriate, then how to change it, how to replace the anger with another attitude that then allows them to still be active, to still be socially active and protest against those injustices.
So he was asking that during the protest out of anger, is it acceptable?
Yes, I think I said that. So is it appropriate? It seems appropriate to be angry in that situations, but if it's not, it seems inappropriate since these are injustices directed at others. But if it is not appropriate, then what should we replace it with? What should we be replaced with?
The Jamwar Michi and Jinta Sung the Sung shooting in Sama Kingre. Tanya the Jamwar Misung the Bashukona, Marangi Tipishi, Tangiton Lavaina, Kondasawa the Tiberta.
So Usually His Holiness responds to this. So those of you who have received teachings by His Holiness, you're aware of what His Holiness usually says with regard to this kind of question. However, before explaining what His Holiness says, Geshe-la's own opinion is that in this situation it is okay to be angry. One should get angry in this situation. But one is not angry with the person, with the people who do the injustice, but with the activity, with the unjust activities. That's what the anger is directed at. So this person who is engaging in these injustices, they didn't do so when they were born. So they weren't born in a way by engaging in those activities. And later on, when they change their ways, when they give up these negative actions, well, again, the person does not go out of existence. It's still that same person. So therefore, we should not get angry with the person, but with the negative action. So what His Holiness says is we should oppose the action, but we should have compassion with the agent. So the person who engaged in the action, we should have compassion for him or for her, but we should condemn the action or oppose the action. So, on the other hand, is it possible to continue activism or to engage in any kind of social activism without anger? And the answer is yes. Actually, the activism becomes much more effective if it is motivated not by anger, if it's not motivated by anger, in the sense that when we're angry, it affects our intelligence. We're no longer able to make appropriate judgments. Our judgment gets distorted, and we may engage in extreme activities that are potentially harmful. So they destroy actually the entire purpose of our protest. So in that way, it is important it's more beneficial when we're not motivated by anger. If our activism or one's activism is not guided by anger, because then one is able to engage in a balanced kind of activity, and a balanced activity that is in accordance with reality. So one doesn't do too much and one doesn't do too little.
지용기 다다로 로고기 도네 다 끼리 소르시도 그 미세버로 바기 디디 마초 다 딜도 로tombe 로딜tombe 니 끼고 제 어토레.
So oftentimes we associate anger with courage. We associate getting angry, getting aggressive with courage. But this is only on first sight. In actuality, it is actually a lack of courage. It evinces a lack of courage when we get angry. So actually why is it, in general we can say there's a lack of courage when we get angry, because since we cannot bear the situation, we cannot shoulder the situation, which is why we get angry. So it actually, we need strength of mind in that moment in order to be able to oppose the action, to be able to shoulder the action. And so therefore we don't say that anger is actually giving us courage. It actually is a sign that we do not have courage, that we lack courage.
콘도기 자와디 랑징징의 투데 인자 딩라 당감자디 요래 거기 호텔간 대디지 로고유도 하고 제마다 딜라는 콘도기도 파카데 자에서 너도 맨날 로고 마치는 자투 말아와는 디디저 먼저 참전의 시디전에 마베버지 카데 자야지 요래 미리지 남자 나로 남자한테 배워보러 오늘 제가 마 배워보지 파 갑자기 자야지요. 다 뒤뒤지 나시는 뒤에 그게 기대기 구셔들이 구셔 가시지 기대 얘기다 신나요로 뭐게 분들라 먼저 근데 조금 늦었다 좀 제일 지거라 안 나공기를 두지는 조사지를 조금经验的 친제 고대 아니 치료를 조금 신다지 치료 되는데 다시 신나나지 좀 아, 내게 저 있어요. 감이 너무 쉬셔서 근데 솔로사들 다 지기스는 제배 학원을 쉬었으려고 지기스는 앞에 시행을 학원을 가고 그래서 남자기 뒤제지도 혼을 같이 자다데 디스로지래 미션 같이 시작하면도 오늘 저는 로고스에디 제시도 대비도는 컨트스파 같이 자고도 생띵네 띵네 뒤에서 걸어 혼을 같이 자다데 되는 말이에요.
So with regard to anger, when anger arises, it arises from the self-cherishing attitude. So this self-cherishing attitude, it leads to some kind of fear that comes from deep within. So this fear, due to the self-cherishing attitude, that then leads to the anger. So this is similar to a situation where actually fear arises. There's actually fear, but one responds with attack. Usually when there's fear, we should flee, we should run away. But in some situations, instead of running away, we react with attacking whatever is the object of our fear. So there's one example, Geshe-la cited an example of some Gyudo monks. So at some point they were in a forest, they were in an area where there were a lot of forests and they were kind of playing around, joking around. And one of these Gyudo monks went ahead and he was hiding. He was hiding somewhere in order to scare everyone else. He was waiting for the others to come, and as they came closer, he jumped out and he scared them. So they were so scared they started beating him up. They started hitting him and beating him up. And later on, when they returned home, the person was beaten up was saying, "Well, you intentionally beat me up." And he was like, "No, we didn't do this intentionally. We were so scared. There was just an automatic reaction. We just started to beat you up." So in the case of anger, so there's where anger comes out of fear. Whereas if there's courage, if there's actual courage, the mind is very relaxed, it's very calm, and from the depth of one's mind, from the depth of one's heart, one is able to make a sensible decision, to take the right kind of decision that is appropriate with regard to a particular situation.
델리 도디 자왕에 뭐 디kim이 다 미먹을 내고도 쓴다 미디게도 내수디 삼단 인지 숙지부지 개바이나 띵네 달로원에 디게 거다.
If then, instead of one's activity motivated by anger, if one replaces this anger with compassion for the victims, then one has, from the depth of one's heart, there's a type of strength, there's a type of enthusiasm that one enables one to act appropriately.
심신 둔조도지 아니 남주인은 다 관할에 또 채워다 신다든지 내용도 제일 중요지 수수 부부여나 제일 파션 카드 짜는구나 로고 랭고라 제와디.
So for instance, in the animal realm, so some animals, when a stronger animal comes and attacks them, in the case of a stronger animal attacking another animal, the weaker animal usually takes off and runs away. But if that weaker animal has children, like kittens or whatever, has children, then because of their love for their children, they actually attack the stronger animal. Instead of reacting with fear running away, there's courage. They're able to face the animal that is attacking, and they're able to attack the animal back. So this is out of love and care for their offspring.
Panamburse di ma zhenyo 어디 조세들라 되게 신나기네 시기가 이제 미지 부키로라 근데 아마도 하고는 아마도 시간 쳐져 그 부글려 진짜 세월이 있어서 그때 제대로 와로 나오게 시대 가서
So
시기가
in Palampur, which is near Dharamsala, so in Palampur there's a village, and near that village there's a forest. And in this forest there was a leopard once. And a mother and her child were walking through the forest, and the leopard attacked the child. And the mother, instead of running away, she jumped on the leopard. And because of the reaction of the mother, the leopard let the child go. So therefore Geshe-la says, usually we would respond by running away, but in this case the mother, in order to protect the child, was able to react in such a courageous way.
사버드 초진의 갑대자 초진의 다 리버다에가 닝지기 토네지디 심 추고 말라 리버다면 다에디 잉에 휴지슈에서 직진은 아 갑대 든지자 있다 디체서 리버다지.
So in particular, if instead of getting angry, if then one generates compassion as part of this activism, so instead of dislike, instead of being under the control of that kind of aggression, then there's some kind of there's some kind of enthusiasm. There's some kind of being really cool. When it's really cool about what should be done, what should not be done. So instead of being under the control of anger, here with compassion, one reacts in a very cool fashion. Oh, this should be done, this should not be done. One enjoys oneself in a sense. There's kind of an enjoyment while one does this.
Geshe-la asked if we can think of other methods. Geshe-la asked if we can think of other methods, and whenever I face such an experience as someone hurting me or otherwise I feel that injustice is happening to me, I try to think of karma and turn the projector towards myself, so I can't blame the other one, and I think, what can I do about it? I admit, not immediately, not easy, but I try to think that way.
잠장 코란시베 춘 내경인다고 지충와이나 야나 내주 장고마이바 덴바마이바다 장고마이베 내수 지충와이나 삼성 콜레기 콜라 삼바나야 펜두도스도다 파기미기 레도스다 뇌겹사기 미야 소소기들 뇌겹사디 소소이나 뇌사디 소소이나야 소소 레라 삼타나 다 가두이는 치코다다 나는 다 도우는 나는 제 도우는 라이네 삼성 삼타나야 또 땡겨 근데 막이나 소소 레기 나와다다 레기 남이네나 시티 콜라 삼타나 해도
단대 렌젤 이치야 혹시 내 상니지 있는 또 배숙 친구 요래 단다 영예다 먼저 최대만 주어디 먼저를 터내 이니신다 가리도 최대 제로디 뒤지라는 슈라.
So it is saying, well, in fact, if there's faith in the law of karma, then this can become very powerful. It can be very strong. One's reaction can be very effective. However, right now, Geshe-la is speaking more about the reaction that is not connected to the Buddha Dharma, that is more a general kind of universal explanation. Later on, Geshe-la will also touch on the explanation that is directly connected to the Buddha Dharma.
편도 되게 초지를 내는 초지를 펜신 섬도에 들라 야 자하나나 주지도 힌두를 써듯이 추무 강가로 수부치는 뒤보다 그래 건조 최저 지기로 어디 수부치지 주 로용디 나가도 스타 컴버 터버 윤자 컴버 터버 발라 아니 파사지 아니 두바이보다 강전 유마래 도스 유 아니 과가를 케더 또 스타디 전에다 거의 과가를 케어다 사두디 야춘 마다르제 카도 양파친 추무 강가를 수부지 치 양랑 잘래도 파사 켄자 미디 됐습니다지 도지 양조 강전 테즈 유 야친도야 야춘 따고 말다 야친 야수부지 치 야츠요 아니 양조지유 아니 양친 치부지야 안티네 코스인데 기우 마주마지 보사 다 되면 그러면 난 건네 야고 좀 와서선 마와라 저체 아니 그 나가를 그때 에서도 레바다 콘다니 지나다 다 내가 계속 아니 콘다스나 되잖아 에서도 되게 투지치 저랑이 같으니 뭐 주무가 가는 저숨 치라서
So there's additional steps to choose from the point of view of some benefit or harm. So there are different perspectives with regard to being harmed. There is a beneficial aspect and there's a harmful aspect. In relation to that, Geshe-la would like to share a story with you about a Hindu practitioner, sadhu. So a sadhu who, as a Hindu practitioner, the Hindus believe that if you go to the river Ganges and you take a bath in the river Ganga, then you purify all your negativities. So at some point there was this particular sadhu who came from the river Ganga. He was returning from his bath, and as he passed a tall building, there was a boy on the top of the building, and he spit down, and unintentionally his spit hit the head of the sadhu. And the sadhu didn't even look up. He turned around and went back to the river Ganga and took a bath. So the boy was quite astonished that the sadhu didn't even look up to see who had spit on his head. So then he decided, next time when he comes by, I'll try again, see what happens. So then the sadhu again passed the building, and the boy now intentionally spit on the sadhu, hit his head, and as before, the sadhu didn't look up. He just turned around, went back to the river, and took another bath. And then again, he came again, and a third time the boy spit on his head, and a third time the sadhu turned around without looking up and went back to the river Ganga to take a bath. So then after the third time, the boy generated regret. He felt that this was not appropriate. He had spit on the head of this sadhu, so he had to go and apologize. So he went down the building, he waited for the sadhu, waited for him to come by a fourth time, approached him and said, I'm really sorry, I spit on your head 3 times, I want to apologize. And the sadhu's reaction was, why do you apologize? You gave me the opportunity to purify myself in the river Ganga 3 times.
야 넘버 줘라지 근데 수변이 왜 아버지 점인지 근데 딱 코콘로 줄이 세고 말해서 다해도 근데 차 디제 디제는 루바티노로는 포상하지 심으시도 어디님도 포사신다 기준 코준 콘도사이 말 근데 시마리스 네 코콘로랑 봤어 나는 돌 남준이 백마지 심으시죠 저지 포사지 아니 이 서버 공연 쪽이 디레도 미상 하전지 야보래면 때 저한테 제대로 좀된 거지 김해디기다 배들이 나가 들이 파주 제마다 들이기를 그 뒤져 추주 아니 그것에 다 제디 그런 좀 좀된 거지 아니 파친지 제디가 가지고 있어 아니 디디가기다 공기분이기로 그것이 있듯이 아니 시인 나와다 출래 레디 제가 딱 말에 제가 뭐도 고는 됐어 제가 딱 제가 파유 다 디다 가지고 있어 아니 고분이 있어요 야 디체가 다 그래서 제가 디다 가지고 있어 아니 고무치 야 뒤체가 땅 제가 땅에 아니 가지 아니 게 춘을 너무 많아라 춘을 너무 많은데 코나 수수를 또 두자 통다 그래서 단 미야 무지를 되면 그게 두지 땅서 무슨 기분이 차지 아니 이 발레셔 요 참아 수주지 다 고무 시로 다 찾아 돈다 고무 시된 띵을 키셔스 나 디자네 데니스 딱이처럼 고무 시를 나서스 이 고무 시 제기도 왔어 나 디자네 디다 린다 고무 시 말했어 디 린다로 고무 시 세 말했어 그래서는 디 된다 네 기면이 배디 거라까지 먹었잖아 아니 타 그 배드 줄이 근데 쉬우자 살았어 다 디처럼 고무시 때네 니 디키로 니 저런 거 유셔들었어 이 집에 있는 그 린다를 찾아버렸어 니 파키 영주 참 미지를 펜타고 있는 니 신의 모습 가지고 린다를 찾아버려 어디에서도 파사드 가지고 주는 거 찾아
So there's another story about a Buddhist, a layman, a middle-aged layman or a person, a layman, who was practicing love and compassion as well as patience. And it said that he didn't get angry. As a result of his practice, he didn't get angry. And this was widely known. And there was a young man who was quite arrogant. So he was kind of hanging out with his friends, talking to his friends. And upon hearing that this man doesn't get angry, he didn't believe it. He said, there's no way this person doesn't get angry. This other person being a salesperson. So he said, there's no way this salesperson doesn't get angry. I will make this person angry. So you'll see that he gets angry. He's not able to practice patience. And so this man, the salesperson came from a slightly poor family, so they were not prosperous. And his wife, she was weaving cloth. So she made, she first made the thread, and from the thread she weaved cloth that he sold in the market. And so as he was selling, as the salesperson who didn't get angry, as he was selling his produce, as he was selling the cloth in the market, the young man approached him, and there was a piece of cloth, and at those times it was quite cheap. So he asked, how much is this piece of cloth? And the salesman responded, it's 4 rupees. And then the young arrogant man, in order to make him angry, he tore the piece into 2. He tore it into 2 pieces. And he took one piece, the half piece, and he said, how much is this? And the salesman said, this is 2 rupees. And again, he tore one of the halves into 2, and he asked him, how much is this? And the salesman said, it's 1 rupee. And so then he tore it one more time. He said, how much is this piece? And the salesman said, it's half a rupee, or it's 50 peso. So without getting angry, the salesperson was very patient and did not get angry. And so after all these reactions, the young man became embarrassed. I mean, his behavior, he saw that his behavior was actually very rude, and he understood how he had acted wrongly, and he generated regret and said, oh, never mind, I'll take all these pieces and I'll buy them. And he wanted to give him 4 rupees. And the salesman said, no, you cannot have it. You cannot have it. This is not worth the value. Because this was, my wife worked on this very hard. She worked very hard to weave the cloth. And you destroyed it. And now if you take it, you'll just throw it away. So I will not sell it to you. Instead, I will stitch it together again and will sell it to someone who appreciates the work that my wife engaged in. And in response to that, the young man lost all his arrogance. So he lost his arrogance due to the salesperson's explanation or reaction.
어제다 점령직이 돈에 갑대 자야 될 배순시를 지고 말아. 어제 뒤 윤대니 저도 통도고 말아. 오늘지는 슉슉해서 뒤 갑대 자야 될. 다이네 거거 당은 유리고네나. 아니 잡지니 지세고 롱대셔도 되게 세고 검제도 전라도 다시도 최기저 마시도 최기저시도 되게 손도 살아. 디메나 디면 유리고제 디체나 이거 직퇴용도 이거 슉 친구 쉬우지 텐도야지. Sebatan Todingi Tony Katijayat.
So, with regard to here the social movement, so in those situations, actually we don't really practice love and compassion when we engage in any kind of social activism. So we don't really work towards that. So we don't have the experience of the fact that this holds incredible qualities, that if someone continuously practices or exerts oneself in the practice of love and compassion when engaging in social activism, it holds an incredible potential. There's an incredible force behind the fact one engages in this activity motivated by love and compassion. So for us, it's like when something goes wrong, we're unable to bear it, and instead of love and compassion, anger arises. So, but for someone who continuously exerts himself the practice of love and compassion when engaging in that kind of activism, this holds a special force, a special potential. So once there were two friends, and one of those friends had an enemy, and the other friend was aware of that. So when the friend with the enemy, one day as they were walking, he was saying, so today I have enough of this enemy, I'm going to destroy this enemy. And so the other one reacted with astonishment and fear. What is going to happen if you destroy him? He's going to kill you. How are you going to destroy him? And he said, I'll make him my friend. So in that way, in actuality, by making this enemy his friend, he actually destroyed him as an enemy, or he destroyed the enemy. So in Chantideva's Bodhisattva way of life, it explains that usually when we get angry, anger arises because of not being happy. We're unhappy. So this is kind of like the fuel, the food that allows for the anger to rise is the unhappiness. So therefore, we should make an effort to always be happy, and content or pleased. For otherwise, if there's unhappiness, if unhappiness arises, that serves as the food, or that serves as the condition or the cause for getting angry. So it says that in connection to that the Buddha, as an antidote with regard to attachment and desire, so those monks or those bhikkhus who experience a lot of desire and attachment, he made them live in a kind of poor kind of way, in a way in which they were lacking the kind of some of the necessities in order to decrease their attachment and their desire. Whereas those who experience more anger, those bhikkhus who experience more anger and aversion, in that case, he then provided living circumstances that were more gentle, that were more positive, were easier to live in, so that they experienced more happiness. So Geshe-la says he seems to remember that this was in the 400 verses. This was mentioned in the 400 verses. so more conducive living circumstances for those who have anger, and more hardship for those who have anger, who have attachment and desire. So then the question that arises: how can one be always happy in order for anger not to arise? How can one be always happy? So likewise, with regard to anger, it is explained that the root of anger is desire or attachment, desire. Likewise, it is explained that the root of our unhappiness is desire. So therefore, how can we overcome the root of unhappiness, the root of anger, this desire, this desirous attachment or desire? So tomorrow we won't have class tomorrow, so it'll be a day off tomorrow, and then we'll come together again on Thursday at 1:30. And in the meantime, please consider those 3 points, those 3 issues. That unhappiness comes from desire, that the root of unhappiness is, the root of anger is unhappiness and desire, and then the root of, and this desire, how can we overcome that? So those 3 points, the root of, the reason why we get angry is our unhappiness, the root of unhappiness is desire, and how we can overcome desire. Please contemplate those 3 points.
Is there time for a question?
Pardon?
Is there time for a question?
Now?
Is there?
Yes.
The other day, Geshe said that the main reason for happiness is cherishing others, and the main reason for unhappiness is self-cherishing. Mm-hmm. Is self-cherishing equivalent to desire? Because here the main reason is desire, so attachment to myself or something like that.
So usually when we talk about the self-cherishing attitude, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama explains, there are 2 types. There is one that is an attachment to the self, and one that is not an attachment to the self. So usually we talk about the self-cherishing attitude as an awareness that is attachment to the self. It's a type of attachment to the self. So now we need to here investigate, how does this temporarily, how does that kind of temporary kind of this immediate kind of attachment, what is this attachment? What are the different types of attachments? And then how is this rooted in this the attitude or the awareness that grasps at itself? So this we need to contemplate.